October 18th, 2022. Madam Secretary, if you will please call the roll.
Irma Johnson.
Here.
Nicole Kunkel.
Here.
Patty Cross.
Yes.
Brittany Sands.
Here.
Stuart Stoltz.
Here.
Jennifer Overland.
Here.
Did I get everybody?
You
I'm
get
Tom
Tom.
Midkiff.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Next, I will entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes from our September 20th, 2022 meeting.
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
Second.
Was that Kunkel?
Kunkel.
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Next up on the agenda, under new business, is our chairperson's report and administrative approvals. The only thing that I would like to do as chairperson is welcome Stuart, our newest board member. Hopefully we'll have a little time after the meeting where you can meet us all personally, but if you just want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you, very briefly.
My name's Stuart Stoltz. I've lived here about 12 years, I think. Got some rental properties in the downtown area here that need work. That I'm always working on. I have a wife and 2 kids.
Welcome.
Yep.
Thank you. And after that, I'll ask staff to come up and do the administrative approvals.
Good evening. Vicki Derenberg, Historic Preservation Officer. We have a short list this time. For the period between September 14th and October 18th, we have 4 administrative approvals. One in the Special Capital District at 325 Shelby Street, replacing the concrete patio with a 275 square foot deck and stabilizing the foundation under the window. And in the Special Historic District, we have 3. 114 Watson Court, privacy fence and patio, 407 Wapping Street, window rehab, and 108 Watson Court, 2 windows to be rebuilt and reinstalled.
Great, thank you, Vicki. Moving on to item number 2 of new business. It was brought to my attention that with the departure of Kevin from the board, he was our recognized vice chairperson. So we need to elect a new vice chairperson, and I will entertain any motions to do so.
I'll nominate Nicole Kunkel.
Second. Thank you, Tom. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I thought you seconded. No. You got it?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, okay. We'll entertain a vote.
Sure. Mr. Stoltz.
What, yay?
Mr. Midkiff.
Yes.
Miss Sands.
Yes.
Miss Kunkel.
Yes.
Miss Oberlin.
Yes.
Miss Cross.
Yes.
Miss Johnson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we will move on to item number 3 under new business. And Madam Secretary, if you will please read the request.
In accordance with Articles 4 and 17 of the City of Frankfort zoning ordinance, Jen Williamson, on behalf of Brett and Amanda Connors, requests a certificate of appropriateness to remove an existing roof dormer and construct a new rear addition at the property located at 110 Shelby Street. The property is more particularly identified as PVA map number 062-3101-00500.
Okay. Good evening. Our first case tonight is in the Special Capital Historic Zoning District at 110 Shelby Street. This is a Tudor Revival style house. It was likely built around 1930. It is a contributing structure to both the South Frankfort Neighborhood National Register District and the Central Frankfort National Register District. The proposal is to remove an unsympathetic dormer which houses an attic fan. The dormer's on the roof, and You can barely see it in this photo. Do you see the tiny little corner that's sticking out from the right side of that front gable? I think maybe, did I put a, maybe you can see it a little bit better in this photo. So that particular dormer is not likely original to the construction of the house. As you know, before we had air conditioning, widespread central air, a lot of people did install attic fans as a way to cool off the structures in the summertime. And the applicants would like to remove this dormer as part of their rehabilitation of the property. They also are proposing the construction of a rear addition. The house already has an addition on the rear, which was constructed sometime after 1955. And also, I'll just mention right now that staff does not find the dormer, in this case, to be an architecturally significant feature to the property. This project is applying for the Kentucky Historic Preservation Tax Credit. In between the time that you received your staff report and the meeting tonight, the applicant and their architect received some comments back from the Heritage Council that necessitated the update of the plans a little bit, which I did provide to all of you all before the meeting. And I printed copies and also placed them up there before you tonight. There is also a note attached to those plans from the architect that kind of goes into some detail about the changes between the staff report and the update. The updated design does still meet the design guidelines for the Special Capital Historic Zoning District, so we do recommend approval. Tax credits are required to meet a higher level of design standards than those that we have in place in the Special Capital Zone. I'll just go through some slides here. Here's the PVA map that shows the location of the property on Shelby Street. You can see the river directly north. Here's kind of a zoom in so you can see the actual lot and the depth of the lot. Oops. This is a photograph of the 1955 Sanborn fire insurance map. This particular map was actually the 1925 map, and then it was updated. And if you're familiar with Sanborns, they were updated over time through a cut and paste method. So you can see some of the outlines of some of the pasting that went on here when it was updated by 1955. But the addition that exists on the back right now is not there on this map, and that's how I know it was constructed after that date. Here is a photo of that rear addition, which includes a one-story enclosed room and a screened-in porch. And you can also see a little tiny bit of that dormer again at the very top there. Here's a view of the backyard. PVA has the dimensions at 45 feet wide and 164 feet deep. So the Tudor design style has some, characteristic features associated with it. Probably the primary design feature with this style is a very steeply pitched, multi-gabled roof, which you see on this example. Even though it's a small example of the style, it still has a kind of complexity of roof lines with kind of the gable and wing presentation there. There are a variety of materials used on the facade, including brick and limestone. You can see that around the entry door, limestone sills. And then there, of course, is the half timbering kind of feature on under the front gable, which in reality is kind of an illusion. The original Tudor structures were actually constructed with timber framing, and this gives that illusion and even has the front projection a little bit there, as the original designs did, using both wood and stucco. You can see the rear structure again, the multiple roof lines, the very large chimney on the north side of the house. And these are the updated plans, which show on the top there, the view from the front. When you're directly in front of the structure, you don't really see the addition in the back. Then we have the elevations from both the north and south sides there, which show how that porch addition is kind of being used with a second story added to act as a connector to the larger kind of multi-gabled, more complex roof addition at the rear. The materials used will be cement board siding, which of course visually looks like wood, which is already found on the structure. The size of the addition is subservient to the original house, much smaller footprint, but there's still a variety of articulation and design features that complement the original structure. So we find these plans to be compatible in concept with the requirements of the zoning regulations and the design guidelines for the special capital district, and the suggested facts that are on page 3 of your staff report. And we do recommend approval, although because I did submit those updated plans to you, I modified the language of the conditions for approval. So I made a copy of this particular slide. Oh, I didn't show you these. Here's kind of the three-dimensional rendering of how it will look. Here you can see the before and after footprints, and also get an idea of how much of the addition you might be able to see if you're standing on Shelby Street on the right side, the before and after. So I modified the language somewhat. We have our standard 2 conditions, right? Number 1 and number 3. But I also included that minor modifications to these plans, which, you know, the Heritage Council has given their sign off on the tax credit, so I don't really anticipate changes, but if they were to happen, if there were modifications, including changes to the location and sizes of the windows and door openings on the addition, I'm not talking about the main structure, just the addition, or modifications to the rear porch and balcony details, that those could be reviewed and approved by staff. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Vicki? So in the figure for A3.1, the difference in elevation that's shown on the bottom, is that due to the slope in the backyard, or is it grading that'll have to be done for this new
I think that is
construction?
probably a question for Jen.
Okay. Any other questions for Vicki?
Complex proposal. I'll give everybody a second.
I have one more. I have one more. Okay. On the earlier Sanborns, were there structures behind what's shown in the 1925 and 1955 Sanborn?
I did look at a 1907 Sanborn, I believe, which showed not these structures, except for the one on the corner, the store that originally
You
I
mean
think
the
was a grocery
primary
store.
structures, not any ancillary buildings, right?
The earlier sandboard included the big, large masonry structure on the corner of Shelby and Second, right? And then there were dwellings, but they were not these dwellings. And there was a series of them, but it didn't go all the way to the river, okay? There may have been like 3, and 2 of them were duplexes, so it might have been like 5 units altogether. I'm not sure, you know, this street probably developed in the 20s, I'm guessing. So 10 to 15 years after that map was created. There was some sort of a coal company behind, which I found interesting.
Yeah. Any other questions for Vicki at this time? Thank you. Is the applicant or a representative for the applicant present?
You have both.
Okay,
I'll come up here to answer any questions.
please state your name and your address.
My name is Jen Williamson, and I'm at 407 Wapping Street.
Is there anything you want
And
to tell us?
the homeowner is here.
Okay.
But I will be happy to answer any questions about the project.
Is there anything you want us to know outside of staff report?
I think you have the updated drawings and our bullet point on the back and forth we had last week with the Heritage Council. I would just make the comment that most of the things that you will see represented there had to do with sort of organizing fenestration, and so there were a couple flanked windows on the ground floor that we kind of assembled into a single door unit with a transom and side lights. He wanted to see those things sort of organized and have a more integrated look to the upper porch with side walls. So we were taking those notes to the proposal at their request. So we've updated that with what you have, and that we have written confirmation from them that that's an approach that they find approvable.
I know that Ms. Conkle has a question for you.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So yes, the site, the site includes a deep yard, and the grade does slope back, does pitch back from Shelby Street to the back. So we do have a transition on the interior of the home to step down to, as that addition extends to the west, that we would be stepping down to, more meet the grade at thresholds and let that living space connect out to the yard.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah.
So would that be pretty much in the same footprint as I guess that was stone pavers that's shown in the photograph?
Yes, it's close.
Okay. Thank you.
It may extend a bit past those, but I also looked at those Sanborn maps, the earlier ones, to see sort of, like we do in every project, sort of when does this thing land here? And it doesn't show up until after the 1925 because it's 1930s development. I also saw the earlier structures. I did not look at a lot of detail if there was an accessory structure far back. I don't know if I could. I don't know if my memory would be good enough to say exactly what those Sanborns say, but there would, of course, be the type of ground disturbance that we have to construct a proper footing and foundation system for a new structure that would be limited to that area of trenching for the addition.
Thank you.
I mean, all of the utilities, I think everything goes back to the street.
On the roof addition, the area that connects, that has the flat roof at the top,
Yes.
second story, what is the pitch on that roof?
It's going to be a pretty flat roof. We will do it with EPDM or flat seam copper.
Are you sure it'll fit there? Like there's enough room to walk there and then put a roof on top of it and flat roof without changing that odd angle coming down between the two? That picture?
I'm sorry.
Can we put it up there? I don't know if we can put it up there or not.
Hit the arrows to get to
Going the wrong way. Is there a pointer? I didn't bring anything.
It's one of the new
I don't have
drawings y'all have.
I went too far now. I
Right
skipped
there.
right over it.
You see how the existing roof has those two?
Yes, and that
pitches?
kind of cricket that sits between the two ridges.
Right. I'm guessing the one on this side is not original anyway. I think it was probably originally a dormer like that other one, because no one would make a roof like that.
Well,
it's already a problem.
Yeah,
you know?
it's a peculiar thing for sure. I'm not sure that it isn't original. Nothing in the brickwork suggests that
Yeah.
there's any sort of cold joint or added. I do think that kind of cricket line is peculiar, but I think
It's also pretty common on that style.
Is it that weird cricket in there? Well, I'm worried about that addition not having enough room to clear there with someone walking through there. It's not too far above the door. How wide is that addition? Like, there's no dimensions on here, so I mean, crossed.
so.
Because you got to have 1/2 inch 12. I think that's the lowest roof line you can have. So if it's like 20, 20 inches across, you got to at least have a 10-inch, pitch plus your edges.
We
and everything. So
we
you're
are
talking-
we are actually pitching that flat roof portion to both sides. And I agree with you on the 1/2 inch per 12 as sort of a minimum slope for a flat roof. I don't know if I'm going to have that dimension to say right now. I will say that we do a full dimensioned as-built drawing of the residence and put it in a 3-dimensional BIM-based computer model and work out all the geometry within that model. So I'm not going to say it has tons of space, but we found it to fit. And the reason we brought that flat roof at that location is to be able to pick up that cricket and do the water management with it there.
Yeah, most people don't like flat roofs though. Over time, I've always seen everybody have problems with them. And if you're putting one there, I just want to make sure that people know that they have to be replaced quite often. It's not something.
That's
you
why
know, 30
that's
or
why
40
the
years,
flat
it
seam
does not
copper.
last long.
Yeah, that's why the flat seam copper is being considered by
Okay.
the ownership is in place of EPDM, because I agree the EPDM roof lifespan is probably 10.
Yeah.
years,
And
yes.
if you're good. And what's the deal with this?
There is an
line?
existing EPDM roof on the lower roof, and that is rendering in gray. I fought my computer for a little while on that. I don't know why it won't let go of the gray, but that's an existing EPDM roof that's on that rear addition that you saw in that photo. That roof there now currently has EPDM as the.
How's it doing? Is it still holding up, or will it have to be replaced too?
Well,
This question.
of course, where we're building on top of it, we won't be maintaining the EPDM roof, and I think probably if we are looking at flat seam sock copper, we'll probably look at doing that on the lower portion too. But I think probably some of that will come down to where the project is on cost and availability of copper, which is apparently an issue right now.
And if we could go back to that picture we had a minute ago. That one. The addition, why does the roof line at the back of the addition go way down to like handrail height?
Yeah, that was actually a design approach to kind of relate to that asymmetry that we see in this rear elevation. And even on the front elevation.
Yeah, I see it on the front. I see it on the front. It just makes it makes a really odd roof line all over the
Yeah,
house.
we
Right
were,
there,
we
you
were
know, it
aiming
goes
to
up.
have the addition sort of speak to the character of the original historic structure with that.
You know, see, most roof lines just go up, down, around like that one, and this one now has that flat roof in it there, and then it goes up and it goes way down.
Yeah, the flat roof, we're really trying to employ that as what is sometimes referred to as a hyphen or a connector
Right.
that
I
would
see it as
distinguish
that.
the historic structure from the new structure.
Yeah, I see it as that too. I actually like the floor plan. I think the floor plan works really well and everything. I just had some comments about the roof line. Even that back roof line's still odd, because if you open the doors inside, I think you amended it on the new drawings, like put a little wall in there. The doors wouldn't open all the way, or maybe they will, but there'll be, as you go in, there'll be an angle here for a little bit that you can't walk sideways. You know, come in the doors, and if you turn to your, to the left or coming towards us, you would run into the roof after a second, because that comes down.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure where,
It's probably hard to explain, but
I'm not sure where you are, but
if you come in the
I'm
back
pretty sure
doors-
we can walk through all the doors.
if you come in the back door of the porch at the top, and you open the door up, and you turned and came straight towards me, you would hit the roof. Because it hangs down further than head level. Do you know what I'm saying?
Are you referring to the rear porch?
Yeah, the real
Yes.
portion,
Second floor.
the second floor where that roof comes way down, almost to like someone's knee.
Oh,
or
yeah,
waist.
there would be a vaulted condition into the bedroom that would be an interior feature.
Right,
There'd
yeah.
probably be dresser or something sitting under
Yeah, I
that
was like, it
slope.
would be inside there, so your doors, I think they would open, but maybe they won't. It doesn't look like it will on the three-dimensional thing. They would only open like, a little
That-
more than 90 degrees before they'd hit the roof coming down. I'm just curious to why you just didn't bring the roof up. You said it's a design thing, but in the middle, moved all the doors over in the middle and came down and connected it with the outside roof. And
I'm at a loss for a pointer, but,
yeah.
but I don't, is there a roof plan in this presentation?
I don't believe so.
I'm at a loss for a pointer, but the rake board that would be on the two ends of that roof that's coming down, that condition would happen on the interior also, and that would
Right.
act like a dormer at that location. If you can see
Right.
here, on that upper corner, that little triangle above the slope that you're talking about, that's where the wall would continue up and keep you well clear of the door swing for the operation of that door.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Yes.
We've read the conditions.
Even the most recent ones after the Heritage Council came back and staff
We-
made some adjustments?
That we would have, that we would continue with the staff, with any additional comments that come from the Heritage Council. Yes, we're aware of those and in agreement with them.
Okay. And then I'm just curious, you may or may not be able to answer this.
Yeah.
This initiative is part of the tax credit program. If underground disturbances revealed anything, is there any obligation to pursue, or is that not part of it? You might not be able to answer, Jen. I'm just curious how it works.
The concern for archaeology is among the 10 rehabilitation standards, and those are the standards which are the basis of making the review for the tax credit program. So I guess that would be the answer I would have.
Okay. I'm just curious. Thank you.
Okay.
What's the siding on the addition going to be?
It's going to be cement board siding painted.
Is it going to be in a thin line and then a thicker line and then a thin line?
I think that maybe is just happening on the monitor. It's a regular spacing. We'll probably have an exposure that's, around a 5.5-inch exposure.
Are there going to be like corner boards on the building, or?
Yes.
And is there going to be wood around the windows?
There'll be wood casing it'll probably be another cement board trim material for the casing on the exterior casing on the windows and doors.
Yeah, it just wasn't on there. So it was just one.
Thank you. All right, is there any more discussion? We ready to entertain a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the certificate of appropriateness for 110 Shelby Street as it's written, along with the newer suggested conditions for approval.
I'll second.
Madam Secretary, will you call the roll?
Mr. Schultz?
Aye, but I think it's kind of ugly. I'll put it on the record. Aye.
Mr. Mickett?
Yes.
Ms. Sands?
Yes.
Ms. Conkle?
Yes.
Ms. Oberlin?
Yes.
Ms. Cross?
Yes.
And Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. All right, moving to item number 4, under new business. Madam Secretary, if you'll read the request.
In accordance with Articles 4, 16, and 17 of the City of Frankfort zoning ordinance, Jen Williamson is requesting a certificate of appropriateness to install solar panels on the east slope of the rear roof with new dimensional shingles to match existing at the property located at 407 Wapping Street. The property is more particularly identified as PVA map number 061-2409-006.00 and 061-2409-00601.
So this property is 407 Wapping Street, which you all are familiar with. We've had a couple of different applications in recent months, and this is kind of a continuation of the last one that you saw. This property is located in the Special Historic Zoning District. Again, this is the Carneal Watson House. It is a contributing structure to the nationally significant Corner of Celebrities National Register District, which was listed in 1971, and also the Central Frankfort National Register District, which was listed in 2009. It is a Greek Revival structure built circa 1855, one story, which is kind of unusual for this style. Apparently the first owner of the house, Thomas Carneal, who was one of the founders of the city of Covington, had gout and didn't want stairs. This house for a few months during the Civil War was used as headquarters for the State Military Board. And then in the 1860s, John and Sally Watson lived there. Their son Hal inherited it from them, and he and his wife Charlotte lived there. And then Charlotte eventually subdivided the property behind the house and developed Watson Court. Here it is on the PVA map. Here is the 1890 Sanborn map. You can see at that time there were 2 wings attached to the property, one of which is no longer there. But the east wing is still there, and this proposal is for solar panels to be installed on the east slope of the east wing. So you all have already reviewed an application and approved solar panels on the rear porch. And here's a couple of shots or photographs of the visibility on that portion of the house, which you approved, I think, maybe in July. And here is the submission from that application. Okay, so this will extend and expand upon that installation on this roof that's on the east wing, which is also a hipped roof, so it's just on the east slope. This is actually not very visible from the public right-of-way. I've got one shot kind of, head on, where you can maybe see a little bit of that front part of the hipped roof. And then at the angle there, you can just barely see the slope. There are some hemlock trees there in front of the property, which are evergreen, which also obscure the view. Here's one more shot. And it is very difficult, I mean, with the low angle of the roof, it's not easy to see. So, we do feel this meets the design guidelines for the Special Historic District with the low visibility of the panel application. This project is also a Kentucky Historic Preservation Tax Credit applicant. And we find that the proposal is compatible in concept with the zoning regulations and with the Special Historic Zoning District Design Guidelines. So we recommend approval with the standard 2 conditions, which are found on page 3 of the staff report. And I'd be happy to answer any questions for you.
Any questions for staff? Don't appear to be any. Thank you, Vicki. The applicant or representative is present, wants to come up, introduce themselves, state their address.
Hi, I'm Jen Williamson at 407 Wapping Street.
You've read the report?
Yes.
And agree with all the staff suggestions?
Yes.
And findings? Are there questions for Jen? I'm just curious. Why more?
So, yeah, when I was here in June, someone said, why would you only do this many or whatever? No, in fact, we had some analysis done by one of the bidding contractors. I sent it to a local solar consultant, Andy McDonald, because I was feeling a little overwhelmed with what was there. And he suggested that our frontier elm tree, which we planted about 12 years ago, was actually going to produce more shading than we had presumed for the porch. So he came out, got on the roof with his solar pathfinder, kind of looked around the roof for other areas. We started to talk about that slope. We're on the asphalt shingle roof, not the side porch. On the back, it slopes. The Bush building is there as a pretty large structure. There is some shading from the Bush building towards the portion of that slope that's the closest to the street, but that part of North Frankfort, the grid is not orthogonal to the orientation of north, south, east, west. So it's a little bit of a southeast slope, not just an east slope, and it's good morning sun. And just that whole combination he saw could do some good work. So we vetted it with 3 different contractors who gave us proposals, and so we've got a system that would integrate both sections of array together.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you.
We did the condition thing. We know the conditions were good.
We did. I will entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness to install solar panels on the east slope of the rear roof with new dimensional shingles to match existing at the property located at 407 Wapping Street with the staff suggestions on page 3 of the report.
Second.
Entertain a motion for approval. I'm sorry, vote.
Mr. Stoltz?
Yay. Good.
Mr. Midkiff?
Yes.
Miss Samms?
Yes.
Miss Conkle?
Yes.
Miss Overland?
Yes.
Miss Cross?
Yes.
Miss Johnson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 4. No, sorry. 5, under new business. Madam Secretary, if you'll please read the request.
In accordance with Articles 4 and 17 of the City of Frankfort zoning ordinance, Michael Hacker requests a certificate of appropriateness to alter the design of the existing front porch at the property located at 614 Shelby Street. The property is more particularly identified as PBA map number 062-1406-00500.
Okay, this property at 614 Shelby Street is in the Special Capital Zoning District. This is part of the Barracks National Register District, which was listed in 1975 with state significance. It is also part of the South Frankfort Neighborhood National Register District, listed in 1985 and expanded in 2013. This project is to alter the design of the porch. I've got a photograph here. You can see the work in progress. This applicant was actually issued a zoning permit and a certificate of no exterior effect to replace the brick walkway in front of the building there, which you can see with stamped concrete resembling brick, and also to replace some of the rotted porch members in kind. But apparently, as they got into the work, they found a great deal more rot than they were expecting. And they did go ahead and start replacing some of the members, perhaps not understanding that that design change was going to need approval by the board. So we stopped the work. The applicant's been very cooperative, and we have been in close consultation to try to resolve this matter to everybody's satisfaction. You probably should know, well, here's the property on the PBA map. I know you're familiar with the location. We've seen quite a few applications on this property in recent months. And here is the 1907 Sanborn map, which I do not have an arrow on, but you can see the barracks building there that has the 7 units, kind of the pink building, right there at the corner of Shelby and New Street. Again, this was a building that is significant for its military architecture. Actually, it was designed and built to house federal troops after the Civil War to assist in keeping the peace during the Reconstruction era. And that makes it very unique, not just to Frankfort, but also to the state of Kentucky. This map shows the same building and actually the entire barracks district, which covers that block in South Frankfort. There were other buildings besides this particular one that were part of the barracks complex. But back to this property, this is the current situation with it. We've got replaced, you can see that the Victorian style columns have been replaced with these square porch posts, and they've shored up the decking with new posts at the bottom as well, and new stairs. Here's the view from another angle. This photo is PBA photo, which was taken in 2016. You can see that the porch was a different color at that time, but I included this so you could see, what it looked like at the beginning with that Victorian detailing. Now, that particular Victorian porch on that particular unit is not original. I don't know exactly when this was built. Both of those units at 612 and 614, which most recently had these Victorian style porches, did not have those porches when the National Register nomination and designation happened in 1975. Here's another view of 614. You can see that 2 doors down at 618, there is a Victorian porch in this photograph, which is also undergoing rehabilitation and is gone at the moment. But it was there when I took this picture last year, and it was also there in the National Register photos from 1975. I have a feeling that was the inspiration for the construction of the Victorian porches at both 612 and 614. And as you know, porches are made of wood and they deteriorate over time. They need constant replacement. This is just to show you where we started with the original permit and the work that was to be done. And this photo is from the National Register nomination, which shows that Victorian porch at 618 the one closest to us in the photo. But you can see 614 and 612 down there in the end have a different design, much simpler design that have simple round Roman Tuscan columns. The National Register nomination actually calls out those porches as being the original, or most likely to be the original, and we have no way of proving that, but they were looking at the other barrack structures and noticing that those have those simple columns as well, the round Tuscan columns. Here's a close-up. You see them a little better. At the end of the block is 628, 630 Shelby Street. This is also a barrack structure. You can see the round columns. And so I think that's why the author of the nomination called out the round columns as being most likely to be original, and the Victorian porches to be a later addition to some of the units. So the applicant is proposing to wrap the existing porch posts that have been installed with these fiberglass columns that will match the design of the original porch columns. And staff does feel that this solution is compatible with the design guidelines in the Special Capital District as they are currently written. Another thing that is part of this application is that the applicant has added an additional porch support there at the wall where the decking meets the wall in the center. That was not there when the Victorian porch was there. But as you know from recent history, some of the way the porches have been attached in the past have put a lot of stress on the brick wall, and we did have a unit at 616, I believe, in the past couple years where the porch was removed and it actually caused the collapse of the wall. This is a way to support the porch decking without that additional stress. And so we do not object to this additional porch support in the center. It's not that visible. It'll be underneath the stairs, so when you're in front of the building, you won't see it. It's directly behind the stairs. So this is where we are. We do feel that the applicant has worked with us to find a solution to this problem that does meet the special capital design guidelines and the zoning regulations. And if staff agrees and elects to issue a certificate of appropriateness for this request, we recommend that these standard 2 conditions be applied, which are on page 4 of your staff report, which also include our suggested findings. Any questions?
What did you say that the wraps would be made of?
Fiberglass.
The
I'm not sure if I did say
Okay.
that, but that is the intent. Fiberglass has been used in both the special historic and the special capital districts in the past. It is a visually, it is a close approximation of wood, much like cement board looks like wood from the public right-of-way.
Go ahead, Patty.
Is the diameter of the post as they appear on this? Because they seem out of proportion to what they
Right.
should be.
Right.
They look like they should be on a large colonial home.
Yeah, that's what I was
I am not
asking, what they
sure
were made
if
out
the
of.
rendering that has been done, which is probably with Photoshop, that was submitted by the applicant, okay? I'm not sure if that totally represents the diameter of the columns that are being proposed. The diameter which are being proposed are 9.75 inches, close to a 10-inch diameter. The porch posts are, 6-inch square, right? I measured the columns at 630, and they are a little over 8 inches diameter. So there's a little bit of a difference between what he's proposing, but I don't know, I can't tell you whether or not that rendering is
I mean,
accurate in that way.
I can sort of
Um,
live with that round vision, but it really shouldn't be wider than the,
Rails going up.
thank you.
Right, right.
When it gets up there, there's this blob. It just looks out of proportion to me.
The base of it is going to overhang off the side of the porch. This picture here, right? Because there's a square on the bottom, and so it's going to that square is going to overhang the porch. Plus, I've put these fiberglass things on like pergolas and stuff, and I've had to attach handrails to round things. It's really hard to attach a handrail to a round thing, not alone a fiberglass thing that's slipped over top of a column. They'll be quite large too, like you were all, someone was saying down there. So, I mean, they will overhang. I don't know if you have that picture, but definitely will, overhang that far just with nothing underneath of it. There would have to be something there.
Is there a way to safely minimize the width, the diameter of the columns as they're proposed?
I think maybe you want to talk to the applicant about those options.
Thank you.
Are there more questions for Vicki?
Vicki, do they have to be white?
No,
Okay.
no, and I do think the intent is to paint them to match the rest. I'm not sure if they're keeping the paint scheme, but we don't regulate paint, as you
I
know.
know.
But fiberglass can be painted.
Right. I have some. They paint well.
Thank you, Vicki. If the applicant is present or representative, if they will come forward, state their name and their address.
My name is Michael Hacker, and I am here for Kentucky Electric Cooperative, which is the owners of the building. And we are based out of Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay, we need your full address.
My full address?
Yes.
My full address is 3321 Cooper's Lane, and that's in Sellersburg, Indiana.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Have you received the staff report and reviewed it and agree with all the conditions?
I don't think I've actually seen the full report yet, but most of the stuff that you've seen on there was the stuff that I supplied.
Okay, are you aware of the conditions outlined in the report?
Yes.
And you
Yeah.
agree with them?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Questions for the applicant?
Yes. Do you know if there's a way to safely minimize the diameter?
It just really depends. I mean, there's several options on the diameters of the columns themselves. The 6x6 post that were used is mainly for structural support. Vicki and I actually discussed it a little bit. She actually recommended going with a smaller column if possible. And the only way to really do that is to shave down possibly the corners of each one of those posts. And that is a possibility. The only thing I'm still waiting on is the manufacturers of those fiberglass columns to get back with me. There are internal brackets that are inside of those columns that attach to the post. So those brackets tend to push out away from the post. So that's what I kind of am concerned about, because what I don't want to do is to wrap the columns or wrap the post with these columns, and then the columns kind of sway back and forth. I want to make sure that everything is sturdy and structural. So the next size up would be the 10-inch, which actually comes in a little under the 10-inch mark, which is the 9.75, 9 3/4 inch diameter. And to go to the base and caps, of course those band boards go around the post. Those are 2x, which is a little bit less than 2 inches, of course, in normal lumber. The caps and the base would overhang slightly, but that's just a matter of trimming it out properly the structure is there. The rest of it is pretty much cosmetic. So that's what I'm technically here for, is to get the, opinions of others to make sure that the cosmetic aspects are met, to meet all the historical guidelines and, all that kind of stuff. So,
Thank you.
no problem.
Other questions for the applicant?
How are you attaching the handrails to the fiberglass column?
That was another one. They sell different brackets and stuff from the actual post column wrap manufacturers. They have special brackets that will actually go inside and attach to the wood. And when you wrap it, you would have to cut out those brackets. So that way when it sleeves over top, the brackets overhang, the wood would go onto those brackets to give you a sturdy handrail.
And then how does the column, is it attached to the column or does it slide through the column?
The handrails themselves?
Yes.
I'm really not sure. That'd be a question that I'd have to ask the manufacturers of the wraps and the brackets and all that kind of stuff. I could technically, I'm pretty good at carpentry. I could make it look very, very symmetrical to meet those columns. I would not ever put a round column with a square handrail butted up to it. It just leave corners. You could snag your purse, you could snag clothing, that kind of stuff. So that would have to be done appropriately.
Coming up on a handrail like this,
Yes.
cutting that out, I've done it before.
Yeah, it takes a little time.
Yeah, it takes a little time.
Yeah. But yes, it can be done and it can meet those columns just fine.
So are you willing to shave off the corners of the square post?
It's a possibility. I'm not, if I can, yes, absolutely. Like I was saying earlier, that the wrap manufacturers have internal bracketing that attaches the wrap to the post, to the wood. So these fiberglass would have a bracket inside that would connect directly to the wood. So that's what I'm wondering, how much does it space off of that wood? Because if I go smaller, that means I'm gonna have to probably notch inside those posts. If that's a possibility, if the manufacturer of those fiberglass columns tell me, say, yeah, that's a possibility, then that's the way I'm gonna go. Absolutely.
So you're asking us to approve this without you actually knowing how they're going to work on the porch yourself?
Well, I mean, regardless, it can be done. What I'm asking for is, can we go with the 9 3/4? If that's out of the questions, then I'll make sure that the 8-inch columns can work. It's just going to take some more, fab work, maybe a contractor to come out to shave those down appropriately without losing structural support.
Well, we obviously don't want you to have an unsafe, unstable structure,
Right.
but this just doesn't look like the barracks should look.
Sure.
I
in my
agree.
opinion, such as it is.
Well, do we know if these drawings are to scale?
No, they are not.
No, okay.
Absolutely
so
not. That was
their
just
rendition
a
isn't
very
accurate.
crude rendering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it might not be as big as what they look like. And Vicky, did you say earlier that the diameter of the adjacent porch posts were 8 something, and these are going to be 9 something at their largest, so you're using an inch.
Why not use something from one of the lumber companies that looks more like the original ones? I mean, you can buy turned posts that are turned after where handrails fit in.
Yes, you can buy those turn posts. At the time, those turn posts were not readily available to get quickly, and that's what we ran into. When we started this project, and we ran into so much wood rot that was covered underneath all of that paint, layers and layers of paint, that's what we ran into. We had to do something, and it's my fault that not following the proper procedure. I had to make a call safety-wise. This is an office building for us. We have people that come from the Capitol building that have meetings inside there, and I wanted to make sure that everybody was safe. It was not pretty, and I've actually sent a letter to our neighbor at the 612, letting them know, hey, you might want to look at your porch as well, because we ran into some significant wood rot. And that wood rot definitely went way past than what we ever imagined, and that's why the posts had to be replaced.
But you feel like your safety concerns have been addressed temporarily?
I'm sorry?
Your safety concerns have been addressed temporarily?
Yes, yes.
There's no longer this
The safety
sense of
concern is
urgency
gone.
and-
Right. Now we're just trying to make it look a lot better than what it looks currently. You know.
I like the square columns better than I do the round ones you're gonna put.
Well, the way it's
Than
depicted.
the fiberglass ones.
I agree too.
But-
I agree that.
But I believe that you could buy some of the ones that are turned and put up there, and it would look a lot better.
One last question to clarify something from earlier.
Looks well done.
If we were, you are willing, should there be a condition to either buy the turned wood post or to minimize the diameter of the fiberglass as much as possible, you would be agreeable with that?
Yeah, I mean, the turn post technically doesn't meet the historical, look that we were going for. So the original historical look was the rounded columns that you seen in that earlier picture, dated way back, the black and white picture that was up there. And can I flip through there?
Yeah, absolutely, it's the arrows.
So there you go. So that's what we were kind of going back to with the fiberglass columns. The fiberglass columns we can paint. They actually come with a primer type finish, which I'd probably reprime it anyways, but to repaint it, to make it look a lot better and all that kind of stuff, that was the look that we were going for. That was the change that we were going for. The turned columns were a lot smaller. They were 4x4 posts that were turned. That was there originally. And there is actual evidence of the brick being pulled away from the building right now. And that's what we ran into along with the wood rot and everything. The beginning, this was the start. Oh, sorry. So this was the start. So we wanted to redo the sidewalk and those steps, mainly because those steps were sagging. They were falling. And that's when I discovered the wood rot. The sidewalk was falling apart. The mortar and everything had let go on those beds. We were worried as a trip hazard. That's why we wanted to go with the concrete. But once we went to change those posts out, it just kept traveling. It traveled all the way up those turned columns. And that's why we were like, okay, we got to do something. We got to do something now. So that's what we were shooting for, was that one right there.
So your preferred condition, should there be one, would be to make to diminish the fiberglass
Yes.
diameter? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, that's the goal.
But should we ask you to replace with wooden, not the,
Turned.
right, just a wooden that would be the correct size and proportion? Probably would cost less than the fiberglass.
Actually, no, because the posts are already there. These square posts are already there, so that would mean removing those square posts, buying the new round post, resetting them, all that kind of stuff. And that would, right now, those square posts are anchored in the ground with concrete, or bolts going into the ground and all that.
Oh, they're full length all the way from the top to the
Yes,
bottom?
sir. Yeah,
Oh,
and the original ones were not. The original ones, I'm not sure if you all know this, but it was like balloon type framing, where it was, the bottom was built as one, and then they started building the top section, and it went from there. So now they do go from ground all the way up to the roof line.
You could cut them off at the floor line and put turned ones at the top, and you'd have square ones at the bottom, which is less noticeable. And I think there's not.
It's kind of, if you look at the back photo, square and turn. Any more questions for the applicant before we discuss? I think that's all our questions for now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, I think we're all in agreement. We're not comfortable with as proposed.
He doesn't know if it'll work. You can't ask for somebody to prove something if you don't know if it's going to work, because the manufacturer can't corroborate that.
Would
Do you want to
place in those
amend?
conditions on it to make sure to minimize the diameter of the fiberglass column?
I
Is
do-
that something we can?
Yeah, I do want to make sure that we're not being thrown off by
Bad.
bad
Right,
rendering.
yeah.
Right. That's what, because if, if you
Well,
can
but then we need
admit
good.
an inch in your head, yeah, a better rendering might be helpful. But an inch is probably not what is represented on the drawing.
1.75 is close to
1.75.
2.
Well, divided by, you got 3/4 of an inch essentially on either
Well,
side that's coming
I'm
out.
familiar
But
with this because that's where my husband worked for
Yeah, the
years.
building.
And I understand his issues.
If you look at,
It's too big.
Well, and I think the applicant
Oh,
clearly
yeah,
would
okay.
overhang.
there's a
I think it's just
dimension
as
in our
easy to put the
packet,
post off
and
at
it
the
looks like
floor
8
height
inches
and
is
put new ones on
predictable.
top.
I mean, with beveling
Probably
down,
easier.
shaving
Yeah.
the
Takes less
edges,
time.
so I think
I
Of the
could
wood.
live with square almost over these.
Yeah, I would rather have square over the round.
Is there a reason that that it couldn't be square?
If you all choose to, leave it that way.
I mean, in this one, they almost look square to me.
We used
In
to,
that photograph?
we used to
Yeah,
router
it
out the
almost
edges
does,
so
but
they
they
wouldn't
are
be completely
definitely
square.
Oh,
So do we,
Decoration down the
do we
side.
establish a not to exceed?
But I mean, the porches have changed over time. You'll notice even with in the National Register.
Vicki, do you mind to come up to the podium? I'm sorry.
Yeah, this one is definitely.
There
a
is
brown.
not design purity,
Yeah.
these porches, which may be original, may not be, right? The roof shape is different than what exists currently.
Right.
So there have already been alterations to the design.
Yes.
You all can come to the consensus about what is the best approach here.
Did everybody see the rear photo that's in there? The rear photo.
with the turn column.
Yeah.
We put some columns on.
Do you see how it's square at the bottom
Yes.
and then turned at the top?
Yes.
I don't know if feasible, that's feasible and saves him some of the, using of the columns that are already there and then kind of,
I don't think so.
I don't know if you
Because
can
of the
add-
fiberglass wrap.
You couldn't cut it off and then add another.
Yes.
no, I think it
Cut
would.
off. Put
I
one
think
on
it
top.
would.
It'd be just fine if you
And
cut
then
cut it
add
off
the-
at floor level and put turn columns on it.
Turn
just fine.
columns on it.
You put 2 jacks in there and just put a couple jacks and it'll jack right off there and cut it right off and it'll fall right out.
would that lead to some of the same structural issues though that we've had with the walls crumbling?
No, it shouldn't.
Okay.
Just want to clarify, when you're talking about turned columns, be really specific, because the Victorian columns were turned columns, but I think you were talking about wood, Tuscan, smooth columns that are round.
No, I was
correct?
talking about the ones on here. You can buy those. Condon carries all kinds of, and Lexington carries all kinds of different.
Back there.
Oh, okay,
Stuff
so
you
you're
can't-
talking about going back to the Victorian
Yeah,
style.
which
Okay.
is
I just wasn't sure.
which is fine with me. Or if you got wood.
So I don't know what we do to this proposal as proposed. I think we're all not certain about it as currently written.
Yeah.
Agreed. I honestly think that the appropriate course of action is to try to match, because we know the porch structure's changed over time, but what is listed, like what is it worded? And the
Nomination.
The nomination literally says, character defining features include Victorian-inspired shed-roofed wood porches with turned posts. That's what this, and not that these are not sometimes flawed, but it is the data we have in front of us to work with.
In the back there is.
And that's more like the picture I feel like that you were talking about.
And here it is on the front.
Yeah.
Very similar.
So,
It's square where the balcony rail is, and then the version is turned.
do we think we can craft this response or it has to come back?
Like come back for a second approval versus sending them out the door with conditions that have to be monitored by staff?
That's what I'm saying, do we have to
Yeah.
reject this totally or come back with conditions?
I'm comfortable with trying to make a conditioned response now if there's something we can be in agreement on.
Let's make sure
Do you feel
everybody's
like you
here.
could, can you?
Articulate that?
Put that in a,
Or maybe he needs to figure out what's gonna be the best solution for him
yes.
to come back
Yeah.
with,
Or
because
maybe
different
time might
costs,
be an issue though.
different.
I think
Well,
he has
I
a
said it was
proposal, he
fair.
doesn't know if it's gonna work.
Is it?
Pretty much.
I think that
Handrail brackets and
So-
things that push out.
this is what is listed in the form. However, Vicky has evidence, photographic evidence,
It's
that it's not what it
it's
was
not
original,
original.
right? So I'm not so concerned with sticking to
Me
this.
too,
I'm concerned with the important parts of the building being structurally protected, which looks like it's happening better than some of the other owners.
Happening, it's happening.
Yeah, this applicant is protecting the structure and the significant.
Back so everybody can be part of
And
it.
it doesn't end up looking like this.
Right. I think this picture is more helpful than that one that you just, as far as the diameter. I think that having a turned post similar to what's listed could be fine. I think shaving to make the diameter fall smaller could also be fine. I think it would just be up to the applicant. I mean, as far as design, I'd be okay with the round or the turn, as long as the building is being structurally protected. Because, I mean, the aesthetics of it could vary. And
I
still
think
be
we're all
okay.
not comfortable with this aesthetics as projected in this report.
As an inaccurate rendering.
Right.
So what we probably need is a more accurate rendering.
I do have a question about this, and maybe somebody can help me with this.
Yes, right there, he was demonstrating the size of the posts that are in place now.
Which are 6,
Right.
yeah, 6
And,
inches.
you know, how if he were to try to go with the 8-inch column,
It would not
he
fit over.
would need to bevel those edges. But then he still does have that issue where he's not sure about the internal brackets.
Right.
So,
So would it be okay to say just come back to us once you know?
I feel like we don't have enough information.
And this would hang over the side, correct?
He knows that, the 10-inch.
I'm sorry.
The 10-inch fits around, but that internal bracket will stabilize it and make it
The
feel
only
solid.
thing that would overhang would be the base.
Right.
The square,
Caps.
yeah.
Yeah, the
Right.
square
Oh,
base.
sure.
That's it. The
Sure.
columns themselves, the round portion would not overhang.
That is
But
still-
they're
That's still
overhanging,
something
yeah.
that's overhanging.
Yeah, and that's what could be added to the band boards, the outside of the deck area to, widen it a little bit so that way nothing overhangs. It would just be cosmetic.
Yeah, but the 6x6 post is right on the edge of the,
No, there's a band board that.
there's a band board, but it's right here, but a band board, how big's a band board?
The band board is 2 inches wide.
2 inches wide, well, that's about to there, and that square is gonna come way out to here. So you're gonna have to be adding quite a bit, which you can,
Yeah.
but that'll end up getting in the way of the staircase too, as it comes around and gets that staircase. And be pushed out so wide, you might have an odd looking spot there. It's just,
Yeah, and
it's
that
it's just something that just keeps adding on.
Right.
And it might just be easier just to cut the post off and add wooden ones that look very similar and then just reattach your handrails. You don't have to make that funny cut or anything. I don't know how many posts they want to be that way, but I don't have a problem with the bottom post being square at all.
Thank you, Stuart. Okay, I am ready to entertain a motion. Anyone?
I'll make a motion to deny this certificate of appropriateness until we can revisit this with concrete information on the characteristics of the columns that are being proposed.
Okay.
Sarah, second.
I second it.
Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Mr. Stoltz?
I'm against it, yay, or whatever.
Mr. Maykiv?
I'm gonna say no. I think there was a solution here we could have come up with. I'm just not sure necessarily what it was. Are you able to use the property currently?
Yes.
So you have
Yeah, we have our rear entrance, so people are coming in and out of the rear entrance.
And it's probably for discussion, and I apologize, but was there not a way to give conditions that staff could approve, like multiple conditions? So I'm voting no because I think there's still a solution here. Thanks.
Are you willing to articulate one for this?
I wish I could.
Yeah, we gotta go with where we are. But Tom, that's what we were trying
I know, I
to
just
get
don't have the
to.
expertise to do it. I apologize.
So,
Ms. Sands?
Yes to deny, but thank you for working with the staff, and I really think that I hope that you come up with an easy solution to make that diameter just a tiny bit smaller. That's my hope. I hope you don't have to like replace anything. Just do a little more like research and then come back to us, and I hope that it's a really simple fix with existing materials.
Ms. Conkle?
yes.
Ms. Oberlin?
Yes to deny, piggybacking on everything said there.
Ms. Cross?
Ditto.
Ms.
It's
Johnson?
not a vote, it's either a yes or a no.
Oh, it's a yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. We hope we will see you again. Okay,
And thank you for your cooperation.
Yes, thank you. We really appreciate it.
And it does look nice, much nicer than it did when I was
Yes.
around there.
Yeah, the work looks good on it.
Yeah, it's
Very nice.
Work in progress for sure.
Yeah, it looks much nicer than it did.
Just an important building and a lot of traffic, and
Yes.
it's it's important. Okay, moving on to item number 6 of new business. Madam Secretary, if you'll please read the request.
In accordance with Articles 4, 16, and 17 of the City of Frankfort zoning ordinance, Jonathan Otis, on behalf of West Banco, is requesting a certificate of appropriateness to alter the landscape design of the existing public plaza in front of the building located at 125 West Main Street. The property is more particularly identified as PVA map number 061-4209-00100.
This property is in the Central Business Zoning District. It's located at 125 West Main Street. The first thing I want to say is that this building is a non-contributing structure to our historic zoning districts. It was built after the period of significance of both of the National Register districts in which it is located. It was built in 1969-ish. It is a very distinctive building. It is a brutalist style. That term brutalist comes from the French phrase béton brut, which means raw concrete. The style is kind of characterized by these large, massive geometric structures that often did utilize concrete. I believe in this case the building has concrete veneer panels, some of which are smooth, some of which have a pebbled kind of exposed aggregate texture. With this type of modern design, the design details really are exemplified through the materials themselves rather than a lot of ornamentation. So it is a distinctive building, but it is non-contributing. And what that means is that for non-contributing buildings, we can apply our design guidelines with a little less rigor. However, this particular proposal, which is to redesign the plaza in front of the building, the proposal actually does meet the design guidelines for the Central Business Zoning District. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Here is the PVA map, show you the location of the property. Here is the existing plaza and the materials, which I'm not sure, but to my eye, that looks like slate, like purple slate. And then there is a variety of brick, which I think has been replaced here and there over the years. But everything is in rather poor condition. There's a lot of cracking and uneven surfaces, which are not safe. But it also just, has a character that does not fit the rest of the district in terms of being this kind of open plaza feature that doesn't have a defined edge to the sidewalk on the Main Street side. The applicant did include the original plans for the plaza that were part of the 1969 design. And you'll see here that the original plans did include more definition. They also indicated a terrazzo material for the majority of the hard paving. But I tried to kind of show where they also had included a design for cast concrete planters along both edges of the sidewalk there, and in between the planters were supposed to be concrete benches. And I do not know if this was ever built. It may have been. Maybe it was removed at some point and the slate and bricks were put in. I'm not really sure. But in any case, we do find that the proposal which has been submitted, which is here on this slide, does a better job of meeting that original intent, but also meets the design guidelines, which section 4.1.2 of those design guidelines that have to do with the site and setting and the pedestrian qualities of the historic district. It does talk on page 39 about the importance of the sidewalk edge. So we do find this to be compatible and recommend approval with the, we find it compatible with the findings on page 3 and have put together the standard 2 conditions should you elect to issue the certificate of appropriateness. And I will be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Vicki? Thank you, Vicki. If the applicant or a representative of the applicant would please come forward and state their name and address.
Hello. My name is Jonathan Otis, Otis Engineering, 234 West Main Street, Frankfort, Kentucky. And I'm here in a somewhat unusual position. I actually fundamentally helped the Public Works Department with new sidewalk construction. And so they asked me, or renovation, in this case renovation moment, they had asked me because the bank was interested in doing this makeover, that at the same time the city wants to put in new sidewalk perimeter. So that's how I got involved. But this is what I do locally, and so the bank said, you can keep doing what you do. And so I asked the very basic question to the city about what kind of permit do you think we need, because here we are making a big scene right there. Okay, everybody knows this location. Okay, Farmers United, however many things we've changed too many times in the past few years. Everybody knows what we're talking about. They probably also know that there's a trip hazard everywhere you look. So that's part of my fundamental focus on this is from the Public Works perspective, trying to make walking and so anyway, that's my part of this. I'm not in the historical context of any of those questions you might ask about whether or not this looks like it's historically appropriate. I just don't want you to trip on it. And so, but I also think this has also been my bank since I started my company, which is right there down the street, a block away. That I've gone there forever, and I think this is a wonderful makeover. Okay, better walking surface, plants, trees, whatever. So to me, seems like a very positive thing. We'll also be doing one of the ramps on the opposite side of the street, ADA compliant ramp from the other side of that direction. So again, that's kind of where I'm coming from on this, and I think it's a positive. And I support what the staff said, and they're whatever, so I'm all good with
So
that.
you have received a copy of the report and agree with the staff's suggestions?
Yes, I do.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
And Andrew can do her thing.
Hi, I'm Andrea Wilson Muller. My address is 100 Old Georgetown Road, Frankfort, Kentucky. And I am the designer on the project.
And you have received a copy of the report and agree with the suggestions as well?
Yes. Mhm.
Are there questions for other representative of the applicant that are here? Questions?
I have one question, and I'm just curious. Is it the two triangles that's outside of the circle? It's just poured concrete, is that what that is? Just a matching poured concrete?
No, actually, that's a ground planter. So,
Okay.
and I'm sorry, for some reason, it looks like some of the design details are whited out, like
Yeah.
the leaders to the, which is driving me nuts
Yeah.
looking at it from here. But anyway, yes, those are in-ground planters, will be treated as basically a green roof. And so that's the lowest planting. And then the two rectangles that are closest to the clock are 1 foot high. The one on the left side of the drawing will have to be a little bit taller because that is actually retaining there right now. There's a big pea gravel planter, exposed aggregate planter there right now. And then the tallest planters will be the ones against the building. There will be a 1-inch air gap between the planters and the building just to protect the building surface. But there will also be, so it's going to line up, well, I don't know where the picture is, but there's a joint in the front of the building. So those planters will line up with that joint on the front of the building just to help match the architecture.
Additional questions for other representative present? Looks good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Don't think there are any members of the public here to comment. So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve in accordance with Articles 4, 16, and 17 of the City of Frankfort zoning ordinance, the request for a certificate of appropriateness to alter the landscape design at 125 West Main Street, including staff conditions.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Mr. Stoltz?
I'll say yes to this.
Mr. Midkiff?
Yes.
Ms. Samms?
Yes.
Ms. Conkle?
Yes.
Ms. Oberlin?
Yes.
Ms. Cross?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
I think there is still one more item of new business, citizen comments. There being no one present, no comments, and I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Yep, seriously, we can talk.